I just wanted, my talk today is about culture generally, and not specifically about purpose. I know a lot of people have talked about purpose during the last couple of days. I've listened into a few. Listen, I'm not an academic. I speak only from my own experience, what I see from my own business, and also from mentoring that I've done a lot in the past. And please excuse my voice, I'm losing it a little bit, I'm afraid. So my business is, most of you will know, is a business park based at Chalgrove, which we've been managing in an ethical way for well over 30 years. And we wanted to focus in a little bit on purpose and values, which we did about 12 years ago. And we use those as a bit of a parameter, a platform for building a strong team. And the explanation of that is in, I wrote about a couple of years, my book Valuable, explains in detail how that was done. So this talk is specifically about business culture and how it is evolving and changing, and how the lockdown and what I call the anti-social distancing, it has changed things in a step further. So the first part is to understand what is culture. I think we can't talk about culture without having an understanding of what do we actually mean by that. And for me, culture is not what you do. It's much more about how you behave. And it's not specifically how you think you behave. It's much more about how others perceive your behavior. Culture is very much based on your behavior. And it's really important that that behavior is consistent over time and across all your team. So that consistency is really, really important. Culture has to have integrity. So what I mean by that is that what you think, what you say, and what you do has to be in perfect alignment. And you know, we can see from politicians who say one thing and do another thing that there's a lack of integrity there. And if you haven't got integrity, you don't have trust. And trust is really important, as others have highlighted during this last couple of days. Trust is really important in building long-term relationships, and long-term relationships is the core of how businesses really operate. I dug up a quote. I won't bore you with how I found this, but it's a bit of a long-winded way, but it's from Robert Bosch, who started Bosch Industries, who said, "I would rather lose money than trust." And I think that, I mean, he said that a long, long time ago, 70, 80 years ago. And it's a really important element, I think, now coming back into business. Less about money, more about trust. As I said, the inconsistency in your behavior undermines that trust. Now, trying to achieve those things is very, very difficult, even if you're on your own. But if you have a team of people, then it's even more so. And in order to take the team with you, you really have to have a structure. And the structure we've set up at Jennings consists of one purpose, 6 values, and 18 principles. And I'm just going to take you through the bones of that structure before I get onto the final part of my talk. So I'm going to start with values, because values are a reflection of your behavior. And when you set out to understand your values, and I've helped 1 or 2 people, more than that, to establish their values, when you take time out to understand your values, it's really important that you do take that time, and you have to think your values don't come from your head; they come from your heart, and they're really what is grounded in you. And in order to give gravitas to the values, you have to understand why they're important to you. So, for example, kindness might be a value of yours. But you have to understand, why is it important? Why is it important that you're being kind to other people? And specifically about from you. And once you understand that, you then have to be able to communicate your values. And you have to communicate them consistently, not just occasionally, but consistently. And it's everything you say, everything you do, everything you write down, every conversation you have, every email you send out, every blog post you write, your wording on your website, everything has to be consistent. And then you have to build your team around your values. And what we did is we started taking people on who we felt conformed or agreed with our values. So values aren't aspirational at all. Values have to be from you. And really finally on values is, I always say to people, don't write them on the wall. It's writing them on the wall is just it's an expression of an exercise where you've got a consultant in to tell you what your values are, which are aspirational, and then you put them on the wall, and then everyone forgets them and ignores them. You can't afford to do that. You have to have them in your heart, and you have to apply them consistently. Now, Jennings, we have 6 values, and I'm not going to go through them all. Just one of them is fairness. Fairness for us is important because fairness is for the sake of equality, and we would absolutely believe in equality, especially in the context of the landlord-tenant relationship. Second element of the culture is purpose. Purpose is important because it provides direction in what you're doing. If you don't set a purpose, which obviously most people don't, I know we talked a lot about it in the last couple of days in Bio 2020, but if you don't set a purpose, then people will assume that your purpose is to maximize profit. And I think as business owners, we suffer from people thinking that about us. So that's why you have to express what your purpose is beyond making a profit. A purpose isn't what you do, but it's why you do it. So mission and vision are not purpose, it's not the same thing. Mission and vision are an expression of where you want to get to with what you do. But the why is much more important, and it comes from your passion, what drove you to start the business in the first place. And if you want to understand a little bit more about that, I direct you towards my TEDx talk, which you can find on YouTube, which explains that process and where things change as a business grows. So I'd ask you, what are you doing in your business to help humanity? And how is your business social or environmental? You're in nature. And what is it that you do that's helping your fellow human being? So at Jennings, for example, I felt that we're a commercial business park, so we have leases with our tenants, and I felt that generally on commercial business parks, the landlord and tenant relationship is based around a legal contract, and there's no humanity in that. It's that problem. Actually, the contracts create fear, and that fear is exacerbated by the commercial agents and the solicitors who get involved in the process. So we stripped that out completely and brought in our own more personal contracts with our tenants, which free up the tenants, gives away our power to our tenants. And our purpose is to build. What we want to do is build relationships with our tenants, not have a contract that gets in the way of the relationship. And so our purpose is to create an environment where people can feel valued. And it struck me this morning, I was listening to Charlie Cox, and she was talking about, she's asking the question, what makes you proud about what you do in business? And what do your customers say about you that make you proud? And what makes me proud, and I'm sure my team would say the same, is when customers tell me how relaxed and calm and comfortable they feel when they come onto the park. And that's because of the environment, not just the built environment or the plants and shrubs and so on, but also the people, the team actually look after our tenants in a very lovely way. Once you establish your purpose, you need to be able to communicate it, and you have to be brave in communicating. You have to believe in it, even though people will question you, or surely it's about making money. No, the prime thing is to create an environment where people can feel valued. And what does purpose do? It drives motivation, commitment, and loyalty, not just in your team, but also in your customers and your suppliers. And I think it's really important from that point of view. We definitely benefit from that. And there's such a lot to say about this, and I just don't have the time. So I won't add to that at this point, but I just want finally to say that having purpose is a very attractive quality. When people understand what your purpose is, they will be attracted to you. Not everybody, there'll be people who'll be pushed away by that, and that's fine. We're all in a niche market, no matter what. So attract people to you who want to work with you because they understand and believe in your purpose. And the final element is the principles. which I think uniquely I've added 18 principles to the Jennings culture, the structure of the culture. And the principles are statements of intent, which amplify the values. As I say, there's 18 of them. I'm just going to highlight 3 which are pertinent to what's going on now. So the first one is the principle of marketing by attraction rather than promotion. And this plays into the purpose element, of course. We want to attract to us people who understand our culture. So when we are marketing, we're talking about how we do business and why we do business, rather than promoting empty business units which we want to let. We've never promoted empty business units to let. Uniquely in the commercial property industry, I think we talk instead about how we do business, and that's because we want to attract people to us. And we've been doing that for 25 years. I should hasten to add, it's not something new to us, but we've doubled down on it a lot in the last 10 years. And you'll see our website and so on is all structured around that on that basis. The second is the principle of change. Change is something we all know we can't avoid. We seek to avoid it. Change creates anxiety, even fear. Entrepreneurs, as many of you will know, are the opposite. They are excited by change. They want change to happen. And in fact, I know quite a lot of my friends I've talked to in business who I've talked to, if things aren't changing in their business, they get a bit bored, and so they put a stick in and stir it because they want to make change. They want to see what happens. And it's the innovative, the entrepreneurial element of the way we operate as entrepreneurs. And so we're not really fazed by change, although change always creates anxiety to some extent. And there's a lot of change going on at the moment. And I think to the extension of that, I think, is whilst it's okay for the business owner to be enthusiastic about change, what about all your team? And so we have a third principle, which is the principle of opportunity, not role. And this is where when we take people on, we take them on not for the role that we're offering them, but for the opportunity to be part of a team which is growing. And that means that whilst they do perform a role, we will offer them other projects to do which are outside of their comfort zone, things that are new, they've never done before. And of course, there's an element of anxiety and fear when they have to do something, they're asked to do something they've not done before. But when they go through the process and do that, what happens if they're successful, then they grow in self-esteem and self-belief and self-confidence. And we can see that happening in all of the team. All members of the team, including me, have gone through that process and are still going through that process. And we become more able to adapt to when things are changing because we are ready to do that. We don't fear change quite so much by going through that process. And I think it's something that all business owners can do for their staff members. We've had great success in that. In fact, last year, Bio 2020, I talked about 3 receptionists who'd gone through those kind of changes. So what does that mean for the lockdown that we're currently going through, and the worries about? I mean, there's a lot of fear and anxiety around that. It's been a massive amount of change, and it's affected an awful lot of people and a lot of industries. Some have been wiped out even by it. So I think there's 3 key things about culture that lockdown has probably highlighted and will become much more the norm for the future. And I think these things were changing anyway. Lockdown has highlighted it. So the first thing is that I believe there's a transition from brand to behavior. Cultural identity is going to become more important than brand loyalty. You have to build trust in who you are, what you stand for, and why you do what you do, rather than just the efficacy of your product or service alone. And you have to understand and communicate and be consistent in your purpose and in your behavioral values. And it's very clear, I think, to most of us now that, in particular, millennials, the millennial generation, prefer to work for and to buy from companies with purpose and who treat their team with respect. So it's going to be an important function of the future. I was trying to give you a quick example of how that, about that, and it's an example of Riverford Organics, which some of you may know, who I've chosen to buy from. We've had an organic vegetable box from them for 5 or 6 years now. And the guy who runs it is actually called Guy Singh Watson. He's the founder, and if you look on his website, you'll see there's a very prominent section on ethics and ethos, including an element on the founder's wishes. And it's well worth a read, because he talks there about why they do what they do, the purpose and their values. And what Guy does, every week, he writes a blog, sometimes one of his team do, and that goes out in a newsletter to all of the customers. I can't emulate that myself, but I do write a blog for our quarterly magazine. And it's an important thing to do, because people need to know who you are and what you stand for. The second element is the change. Change is happening anywhere, and as others have alluded to this last couple of days, the speed of change is speeding up, and those changes are happening anyway. The change that we've experienced through lockdown, in my view, was going to happen anyway. Maybe not as severely as this, clearly, but there's an awful lot of problems, I think, in our economy, and change will happen. I think we're not going to get the V or the U or the W-shaped curve. My personal view is that we have an L shape. It's going to be quite bad for quite a long period of time. And in particular, I think one change I want to highlight is the shift from global to local. And that already is affecting supply chains, food industry, and travel and tourism. I think that's going to take a long time to go back to global, if it ever does. Personally, I'm glad. I think I've always tried to buy local. I encourage people to buy local. I hope mainly in my business we buy local as much as we can. I think it's an important element of being in business. And we need to treat change not as something to fear, but as an opportunity. There is opportunity in change if we can find it. And we need to build a team that's capable of making change happen. And you need to start now with your team. And so that we can all be able to adapt quickly in the face of change. That's going to be absolutely critical in the future. And the final thing is about profit. I always consider profit as an outcome, not an objective. So our objective is, for Jennings, is people, which is our own people, our team and our customers, community, the outside community, and the environment. And if you get your application of those right, then profit will be an outcome. And always remember, it's not what you do with profit that counts. So it's not how much profit you make that counts. It's what you do with it. Because if you're playing it back into your business to further your purpose, then profit is a good thing.